hundreds of homicides by law enforcement agencies between 2007 and 2012 aren't included in records kept by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's the findings of a WSJ analysis and investigation, and it's disturbing. WSJ's Rob Barry worked on it and joins us now with the story. Rob, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much.
This is fascinating. What did you look at and what did you find was missing?
Well, we looked at the reports that are sent to the FBI, which are supposed to show, among all homicides, those that are involving law enforcement officers. And
to be clear, a homicide is just a killing.
Yes.
Whether it's an unlawful one or a lawful one, it is still a homicide.
Good point. These are justifiable homicides by law enforcement. So every one of them is ruled justifiable by some jurisdiction. There's no question of any wrongdoing here. These officers are facing dangerous situations and they're forced to pull triggers.
So you looked at the federal figures, and then you looked also at the local agencies.
Yes. So the federal figures, in our reporting earlier, we had heard there were some incidents that might be missing from the federal figures. So we decided to try and track down exactly why that was, what was missing, what did police agencies have. So we surveyed more than 100 large departments and asked them how many of these incidents do they have each year. And
we just had a graphic up there. New York City, the police department here, which is huge, it's close to 40,000 officers. Police reported 68 in that period, and the FBI's tally, 0.
That's right. And that's because the state of New York doesn't report these incidents to the FBI. The way the process works is that the city of New York would report them to the state, and then the state would pass that information to the FBI. But in the state of New York's case, and in several other large states' cases, that doesn't happen.
And we got Miami-Dade there, which is clearly a big area, a big city, big area.
Both Miami-Dade and Jacksonville are in Florida, where you have an agency there, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, which sends the reports to the FBI, but the reports aren't in the format the FBI accepts, so they aren't included.
Okay, and there's a great quote in your story from a statistician with the Bureau of Justice Statistics, and she says, quote, "Does the FBI know every agency in the U.S. that could report but has chosen not to? The answer is no." And that sort of sums up the situation, doesn't it?
Exactly. Nobody knows how many of these incidents occur. Police departments themselves usually track them carefully, but on a national level, it's just completely unknown.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much.
Hundreds of police killings are uncounted in federal stats. FBI data differs from local counts on justifiable homicides. Washington, when 24-year-old Albert Jermaine Payton wielded a knife in front of the police in the city's southeast corner, officers opened fire and killed him. Yet according to national statistics intended to track police killings, Mr. Payton's death in August 2012 never happened. It is one of hundreds of homicides by law enforcement agencies between 2007 and 2012 that aren't included in records kept by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A Wall Street Journal analysis of the latest data from 105 of the country's largest police agencies found more than 550 police killings during those years were missing from the national tally or, in a few dozen cases, not attributed to the agency involved. The result, it is nearly impossible to determine how many people are killed by the police each year. Public demands for transparency on such killings have increased since the August shooting death of 18-year-old Michael Brown by police in Ferguson, MO. The Ferguson Police Department has reported to the FBI one justifiable homicide by police between 1976 and 2012. Law enforcement experts long have lamented the lack of information about killings by police. When cops are killed, there is a very careful account and there's a national database, said Jeffrey Fagan, a law professor at Columbia University. Why not the other side of the ledger? Interactive, justifiable homicides by law enforcement. Police can use data about killings to improve tactics, particularly when dealing with people who are mentally ill, said Paco Balderrama, a spokesman for the Oklahoma City Police Department. It's great to recognize that, because 30 years ago we used to not do that. We used to just show up and handle the situation. 3 sources of information about deaths caused by police: the FBI numbers, Figures from the Centers for Disease Control and data at the Bureau of Justice Statistics differ from one another widely in any given year or state, according to a 2012 report by David Klinger, a criminologist with the University of Missouri St. Louis and a one-time police officer. To analyze the accuracy of the FBI data, the journal requested internal records on killings by officers from the nation's 110 largest police departments. 105 of them provided figures. Those internal figures show at least 1,800 police killings in those 105 departments between 2007 and 2012, about 45% more than the FBI's tally for justifiable homicides in those departments' jurisdictions, which was 1,242, according to the journal's analysis. Nearly all police killings are deemed by the departments or other authorities to be justifiable. The full national scope of the underreporting can't be quantified. In the period analyzed by the journal, 753 police entities reported about 2,400 killings by police. The large majority of the nation's roughly 18,000 law enforcement agencies didn't report any. Does the FBI know every agency in the U.S. that could report but has chosen not to? The answer is no, said Alexia Cooper, a statistician with the Bureau of Justice Statistics who studies the FBI's data. What we know is that some places have chosen not to report these, for whatever reason. FBI spokesman Stephen G. Fisher said the agency uses established statistical methodologies and norms when reviewing data submitted by agencies. FBI staffers check the information, then ask agencies to correct or verify questionable data, he said. The reports to the FBI are part of its Uniform Crime Reporting Program. Local law enforcement agencies aren't required to participate. Some localities turn over crime statistics, but not detailed records describing each homicide, which is the only way particular kinds of killings, including those by police, are tracked by the FBI. The records, which are supposed to document every homicide, are sent from local police agencies to state reporting bodies, which forward the data to the FBI. The journal's analysis identified several holes in the FBI data. Justifiable police homicides from 35 of the 105 large agencies contacted by the journal didn't appear in the FBI records at all. Some agencies said they didn't view justifiable homicides by law enforcement officers as events that should be reported. The Fairfax County Police Department in Virginia, for example, said it didn't consider such cases to be an actual offense, and thus doesn't report them to the FBI. For 28 of the remaining 70 agencies, the FBI was missing records of police killings in at least 1 year. 2 departments said their officers didn't kill anyone during the period analyzed by the journal. About a dozen agencies said their police homicides tallies didn't match the FBI's because of a quirk in the reporting requirements. Incidents are supposed to be reported by the jurisdiction where the event occurred, even if the officer involved was from elsewhere. For example, the California Highway Patrol said there were 16 instances in which one of its officers killed someone in a city or other local jurisdiction responsible for reporting the death to the FBI. In some instances reviewed by the journal, an agency believed its officers' justifiable homicides had been reported by other departments, but they hadn't. Also missing from the FBI data are killings involving federal officers. Police in Washington, D.C., didn't report to the FBI details about any homicides for an entire decade beginning with 1998, the year the Washington Post found the city had one of the highest rates of officer-involved killings in the country. In 2011, the agency reported 5 killings by police. In 2012, the year Mr. Payton was killed, there are again no records on homicides from the agency. D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Kathy Lanier said she doesn't know why the agency stopped reporting the numbers in 1998. "I wasn't the chief and had no role in decision-making back then," said Ms. Lanier, who was a captain at the time. When she took over in 2007, she said, "Reporting the statistics was a nightmare and a very tedious process." Ms. Lanier said her agency resumed its reports in 2009. In 2012, The agency turned over the detailed homicide records, she said, but the data had an error in it and was rejected by the FBI. She referred questions about why the department stopped reporting homicides in 1998 to former Chief Charles H. Ramsey, now head of the Philadelphia Police Department. Mr. Ramsey declined to comment. In recent years, police departments have tried to rely more on statistics to develop better tactics. You want to get the data right, said Mike McCabe, the undersheriff of the Oakland County Sheriff's Office in Michigan. It is really important in terms of how you deploy your resources. A total of 100 agencies provided the journal with numbers of people killed by police each year from 2007 through 2012, 5 more provided statistics for some years. Several, including the police departments in New York City, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and Austin, Texas, post detailed use of force reports online. 5 of the 110 agencies the journal contacted, including the Michigan State Police, didn't provide internal figures. A spokeswoman for the Michigan State Police said the agency had records of police shootings, but not in tally form. Big increases in the numbers of officer-involved killings can be a red flag about problems inside a police department, said Mike White, a criminologist at Arizona State University. Sometimes that can be tied to poor leadership and problems with accountability, he said. The FBI has almost no records of police shootings from departments in 3 of the most populous states in the country: Florida, New York, and Illinois. In Florida, available reports from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement don't conform to FBI requirements and haven't been included in the national tally since 1996. A spokeswoman for the state agency said in an email that Florida was unable to meet the FBI's reporting requirements because its tracking software was outdated. New York revamped its reporting system in 2002 and 2006, but isn't able to track information about justifiable police homicides, said a spokeswoman for the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services. She said the agency was looking to modify our technology so we can reflect these numbers. In 1987, a commission created by then-Governor Mario Cuomo to investigate abuse of force by police found that New York's reports to the FBI were inadequate and incomplete, and urged reforms to hold government accountable for the use of force. The spokeswoman for the State Criminal Justice Agency said it isn't clear what the agency did in response back then. Illinois only began reporting crime statistics to the FBI in 2010 and hasn't phased in the detailed homicide reports. We cannot begin adding additional pieces because we are newcomers to the federal program, said Terry Hickman, director of the Illinois State Police's crime reporting program. 2 agencies in Illinois deliver data to the FBI, Chicago and Rockford. In Washington, D.C., Councilman Tommy Wells held 2 hearings this fall on police oversight. He said he was surprised that the department hadn't reported details of police killings to the FBI. That should not be a challenge, he said. More than 2 years after the knife-carrying Mr. Payton was shot and killed by D.C. police, his mother, who witnessed the killing, said she is still looking for answers. Helena Payton, 59, said her son had many interactions with local police because of what she said was his mental illness. All the cops in the 7th District knew him, just about, she said. The officers who arrived that Friday afternoon in August, in response to a call from Mr. Payton's girlfriend, had never dealt with her son, she said. According to Ms. Payton, her son walked outside holding a small utility knife. As he approached the officers, they fired dozens of bullets at him, she said. He died soon after. The U.S. Attorney's Office is reviewing the incident, as is customary in all police shootings in Washington. A spokesman for the office declined to comment on the status of the case. The Washington Police Department, citing the continuing investigation, declined to provide the officers' names, a narrative of what happened, or basic information usually included in the reports to the FBI, such as the number of officers involved in the shooting. The officers involved are back on duty, according to D.C. authorities, but the case isn't closed. Write to Rob Berry at rob.berry@wsj.com and Coulter Jones at coulter.jones@wsj.com. Police-related death toll nearly doubles as feds finally make an effort to count them. Since 2003, the Bureau of Justice Statistics has been documenting deaths of citizens by police, also known as arrest-related deaths, ARD. It is designed to be a census of all deaths that occur during the process of arrest or during an attempt to obtain custody by a state or local law enforcement agency in the United States, according to the website. The Federal Bureau also tracks records of Deaths in Custody Program, DCRP, which records deaths of prisoners while in jail or prison. According to the BJS, which released its preliminary findings from 2015, an estimated 1,900 ARDs occurred, over a 12-month period in 2015 and 2016. Unfortunately, the BJS had to rely on open-source data for much of its calculations as there is no federal database mandated for use in reporting such deaths. It had previously been estimated, based on reports from surveyed agencies, that there were only 425 deaths, but after an exhaustive search of media reports, a total approaching 2,000 was discovered to have occurred between June of 2015 and March of 2016. BJS admitted it relied on information obtained from police watchdog groups and associations. In addition to direct media alerts, BJS consulted existing open-source lists of deaths with scopes that overlapped with the ARD program, including lists maintained by Fatal Encounters, The Guardian, Killed by Police, Gun Violence Archive, and The Washington Post. Of these, Fatal Encounters most closely matched the ARD program scope. Killed by Police included deaths associated with off-duty police officers who are not acting in an official agency capacity, and the ARD program excludes such deaths, notes the BJS report. Did you catch the last line in the quote? The official BJS report doesn't include officer-involved shootings which took place when an officer was off-duty. In the year 2000, the Death in Custody Reporting Act was passed by Congress requiring quarterly reports of any person who dies while in custody. But one issue regarding compliance with DIRCA was that it was largely voluntary, meaning states that did not comply faced no punitive actions for not reporting. You can't fix what you can't measure, Wade Henderson, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, said in a statement, implying the problem of deaths while in custody is a fixable one. DIRCA expired in 2006, yet BJS continued collecting data, until 2013, when the law was passed again. The Wall Street Journal described the problems associated with the crucial collection of data. 3 sources of information about deaths caused by police: the FBI numbers, figures from the Centers for Disease Control, and data at the Bureau of Justice Statistics differ from one another widely in any given year or state, writes the WSJ. It's not a difficult problem to solve, but having 3 organizations report statistics with such discrepancies, to gather all the data and produce a reliable report, is a tall order in and of itself. Many activist groups are up in arms over the lack of an accurate federal database of ARDs and deaths while in custody. More than 60 civil rights, LGBTQ and criminal justice organizations, including the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ACLU, signed a letter, demanding that the DOJ get tougher about transparency in policing, according to one source. Complicating matters, as late as 2014, a large majority of the nation's nearly 18,000 law enforcement agencies didn't report any ARDs or deaths while in custody. Hence the work of the BJS is quite laborious. With compliance being voluntary, without any real teeth as one critic put it, and an astounding number of law enforcement agencies reporting no deaths at all, the BJS has resorted to combing through the newspapers, so to speak. Even though BJS surveyed police departments, it is believed that the number of individuals who die while in custody is much higher because suicide, accident, and other manners of death do not get reported by the mainstream media and cannot be gathered by scouring through information gathered from open sources. Image, http://pixel.watch/QT7. The Miami Herald summarized how BJS arrived at its estimation. The Bureau started with media reviews, which found 1,348 potential arrest-related deaths in the United States from June 1, 2015 through March 31, 2016. That came out to an average of about 135 arrest-related deaths per month. Those media reports identified 379 deaths in June, July, and August 2015, but by reaching out to law enforcement agencies to confirm certain deaths, the Bureau found there were actually 425 deaths during that period, a 12% difference. The Bureau of Justice Statistics projected the 1,900 arrest-related deaths for 2015 by relying on media reports and assuming the 12% difference across the year. It's inconceivable that a country as big and powerful as the United States, and one which is capable of calculating a massive federal budget, cannot and will not force its police departments to report deaths of suspects, prisoners, and inmates in an effective manner. What do they have to hide, we ask? The answer would probably shock us all. Read more at http://thefreethought-project.com/deaths-americans-police-custody-hire-expected/number sign 6 TJTFQL2 of POW.99